Hello everyone! Today I will be discussing an article, an empirical study about the cultural differences in people's psychological response to COVID-19. This is an article done by Yap and colleagues. The topic compares Chinese and Euro-Canadians during early periods of the pandemic. So the topics that I will discuss are Chinese and Euro-Canadians during early periods of the pandemic, and cultural psychology of emotions and how different cultures react to emotions. The table of contents contain the introduction, theories, hypotheses, methods, results, and conclusion. The study examines people's responses during the pandemic, comparing Chinese and Euro-Canadian students. Now, why does this study matter? It reveals the role of culture in the way people think about and understand the world. The context of COVID-19 suggests that compared to Euro-Canadians, Chinese may be more likely to react to the pandemic with positivity in terms of optimism, well-being, and meaning in life compared to Euro-Canadians. Together, these findings highlight the impact of culture on well-being and that optimism may mediate cultural differences in psychological well-being and meaning in life. So, why are East Asians more optimistic? Because they adopt the idea of naive dialecticism, which is rooted in East Asian philosophies and it's about the anticipation of change. The association between meaning in life and optimism is found in both Asian Americans and European American countries. So here I will discuss some theories, how East Asians view the world. East Asians might perceive negative life events in a way that dilutes the negativity of it and leads them to have positive emotions about stressful events. This is aligned with the non-linear theory of change, which assumes that everything in life is in constant transformation between positive and negative. East Asians tend to experience emotions and affective experiences as ever-changing, compatible with the non-linear theory of the world and also naive dialecticism. So again, why are East Asians more optimistic? Because they adopt the idea of naive dialecticism, which is rooted in East Asian philosophies, and it's about the anticipation of change. So more on the theories, how North Americans view the world versus East Asians. North Americans have emotions that are centered on the self, like pride and anger, whereas East Asians tend to have emotions centered on others. For example, they'll feel guilt if they don't help others. North Americans see life as satisfying when there are positive events, whereas for East Asians, life is already satisfying as it is. It's just a mix of good and bad times. The Chinese Americans also expected life to have a non-linear path, a transformation between positive and negative. So here are some vocab words that I have already discussed. I'll just explain it more in detail and focus on them more as they're very important. So first we have naive dialecticism. Naive dialecticism encompasses the tolerance of contradictions, the anticipation of change, and holism. And then according to the study, this is a quote from the article. Naive dialecticism means a mental pillar of reasoning in East Asian cultures, which assumes that contradictions are the foundation of life. A linear theory of change assumes that everything in the world is in constant transformation between negativity and positivity. Meaning in life has been defined as people's subjective judgments about their lives. The study had several hypotheses, so I will explain all four. Hypothesis 1, the Chinese participants would feel more optimistic than would Euro-Canadian participants in the context of COVID-19. Hypothesis 2, Chinese participants would report better psychological well-being and higher meaning in life than Euro-Canadian participants. Hypothesis 3. Optimism may predict psychological well-being and meaning in life. Hypothesis 4. Optimism may mediate cultural differences in psychological well-being and meaning in life. So here are some of the methods that were used to proceed in the study. They tested optimism, well-being, and perceived meaning of life through questionnaires. They conducted a cross-cultural study with over 500 Euro-Canadians and Chinese participants. They had them all do a survey twice, about 1 week apart, and this is also a longitudinal study. Some tests that were used in the study were the State Optimism Measure and Life Orientation Task, the WHO 10 Wellbeing Index, and the Satisfaction and Life Scale test. So here are the results of the study. The Chinese participants reported higher positive affect, and affect means emotions, optimism, and meaning of life. So here is a quote from the study. As predicted, Chinese participants reported more positive effect and less negative effect, higher optimism, higher state psychological well-being, and higher meaning presence compared to Euro-Canadian participants. And also optimism, well-being, and meaning of life predicted one another in the study. So that means if a person had high optimism, then they also had high well-being, and vice versa. And it's also good to mention that in the results that even though Chinese participants experienced better well-being and higher meaning of life, that they reported lower levels of general well-being, so general well-being in their overall life. But during the study, they showed higher state of psychological well-being. To start with the discussion, I will mention some quotes from some articles to support the study's argument. So here is one quote. Positive and negative expectations regarding the future are important for understanding the vulnerabilities to mental disorders, in particular mood and anxiety disorders, as well as to physical illness. A significant positive relation emerges between optimism and coping strategies focused on social support and emphasis on positive aspects of stressful situations. Optimism may significantly influence mental and physical well-being. So this suggests that optimism is a good coping strategy when facing stressful life situations. So in the study, the stressful life situation they were facing was COVID-19, and the participants that had high optimism had better coping strategy towards COVID-19. This means that when East Asians incorporated optimism, they were able to face difficult life situations with more positivity. So another explanation of East Asians experiencing better well-being in face of adversity is, according to Kim and Mesquita and colleagues, so this is another quote, people who experience emotions in ways that are typical in their cultural context have greater well-being, satisfaction with relationships and social support, and greater psychological well-being, example, higher self-esteem and positive emotion, than individuals who do not. So this suggests that in East Asian cultures, it's possible that they experience positive affect emotions more frequently. As we've seen before, East Asians believe in the idea of naive dialecticism, which concerns the tolerance of contradictions and that contradictions are a part of life. East Asians hold strong beliefs in naive dialecticism more than North Americans. East Asians tend to embrace contradictions in life, whereas North Americans tend to view contradictions as something that should be avoided. So this leads to East Asians having a more positive experience in the face of stressful situations. So in this slide and discussion part 3, I'm going to explain 2 quotes. So here are the 2 quotes. A growing body of research identifies meaning in life as a fundamental human need that strongly influences both psychological and physical well-being. Individuals who perceive their lives as full of meaning live longer, healthier, and happier lives than those less inclined to view their lives as meaningful. And the second quote. Collectivist cultures place high values on effort and the process of self-improvement that endorse high levels of the search for meaning. Meaning in life plays an important role in enhancing the subjective well-being of community-dwelling elders in Korea. In Chinese culture, rich meaning of life is related to a sense of self-responsibility towards one's well-being, as well as a responsibility to serve the society and other people without any rewards. So this suggests that Asian populations focus more on the meaning of life, and they use it as a coping strategy to enhance their well-being. This is reflected in them wanting to help others, which is an ideal of a collectivist society. The meaning of life supported greater well-being in one's life. So here is another quote. East Asians tend to hold a stronger belief than North Americans in the nonlinear development of events. When predicting the future, given past trends, Chinese participants tend to make predictions that deviate from the original propensity of the trend. So this suggests that East Asians' ability to not predict everything, to turn out positive, or to not turn out one linear way all the time, leads to them being more optimistic and having a more optimistic point of view in the present. In the study, it is also good to mention how in the discussion they talked about the tightness and looseness of cultures and how that can affect a culture's ability to accept new norms. So for example, Western populations are less likely to accept new norms, whereas East Asian populations are more likely to accept new norms. So when the COVID pandemic hit, and it forced everyone to adapt to a different set of routines and norms, East Asians were the least likely to react very negatively to that. They were the least likely to react negatively to adopting new norms. In conclusion, the study by Yap and colleagues support existing theories of nonlinear theory of change and naive dialecticism. It also supports existing theories of one's optimism, influencing their worldview and well-being. Compared to Western countries, East Asians adopt more of an optimistic point of view of life, while incorporating the meaning of life in naive dialecticism and the nonlinear theory of change to see the world in a positive point of view when in stressful situations. Some limitations are, if the research is done on students, which it was, then the Euro-Canadian students in particular are probably from the weird population, and thus they might not accurately represent the European population, but might only represent the Canadian diverse educated population. Thank you guys for watching.